Before you watch this video, I want you to go to the link in the description and watch the video titled, "You Cannot Prove Your Way into Alignment." It piggybacks off of, this video piggybacks off of that video. So for today's video, I want to talk to you about the trap of productivity and how busyness has become its own social status signifier and identifier. So let me just ask you this at first. Why do you feel like you have to do it all? Why do you feel, what about being busy and running yourself into the ground? Although on the surface it looks like strength, but when you lay down to sleep at night, you start to feel the tension in your muscles and the whatever subconscious trauma may be there starts to come up with speed. Why is it whenever you're resting, you feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to do? Why do you feel guilty when you lay down? Why do you feel like you have to justify your existence through your productivity? Especially as a spiritual woman, not only are you more sensitive than the average woman, but you have cycles, children, spouses, relationships. Why do you feel the need to do it all? Capitalism and patriarchy has sold us this lie that our worth is tied to our output. We're always measured according to what we can produce. Our value is determined by what we can give. That's both for work, that's for relationships, everything about what we can do. We're always asked, what can I bring to the table? What can you bring to the table? And I think that's such a stupid question, but we're not gonna go there. But the reason why we're told this lie is because our output is quantifiable, it's measurable, and it can be compared. And it keeps us in this loop of never wanting to look not productive. And that leaves us producing almost in a circle, or producing for the sake of producing. And don't get me wrong, I know for the women who are called to work with me and who are watching this channel, they have produced and they've created something amazing and tremendous. And I don't want to act as if resting 24/7 is the right path either. But I do want to highlight the enmeshment that a lot of highly successful spiritual and founders have with time and what they are producing, or busyness. Busyness makes you appear more important. It makes you feel needed, more qualified, authoritative, and not lazy. I mean, look at the woman that we have to model after. Beyonce, she works hard. Kamala Harris, she has worked hard. So many women that are on the forefront today, they're working, especially when it comes to the music industry, because we're seeing the product of their work every single time they perform, every single time they drop something. We see the fruit of their work. And I know in a lot of circles, especially male-dominated industries, having a good work ethic is something that makes you look more legit, more, what's a good word to put it? It makes you look better than you might be. Having a packed schedule makes you look more important than you may ever be. And so I've always heard people talk about how we need to rest and why it's important, but I never hear anyone talk about the reason why it's so hard for so many women to just rest. Why it's so hard for women to just delegate and maybe hire a laundry cleaner for the week, or maybe hire a personal chef to take over their cooking. Why is it so hard for so many women to just be and exist? And I've never heard this reason explained. I've heard reasons such as you don't feel worthy. I've heard reasons such as you don't feel like you've earned it. I've heard reasons such as maybe you don't want to rest because you feel like things are going to fall apart. And those are all valid reasons. But for this video, I want to highlight something that is a hidden reason, and something that keeps women working against themselves and their nature, or their personal nature, which I like to call their creative rhythm. And that is safety. Safety in the sense that when you have built something, or you have gone through systems such as the educational system, that could be for law, that could be for medicine, any high impact career path, business that requires consistent output. You could even be an influencer, posting 7 times a day. Any industry that requires consistent output and repetition and showing up constantly, and especially when there's a lot of men in that industry, think tech, it's very hierarchical. It's very hierarchical. And so a lot of your success and your safety in that success comes from how high up the ladder you land. And so imagine being in these industries, being around these people who are working from morning to nighttime, waking up at 4 a.m., going to the gym, getting up and building these businesses and having these high income, high cash months, everything. And then you turn around and say, I'm only going to work for 2 hours a day. Imagine saying that to one of them, or you saying like, I just want to do nothing. Have you ever said that to somebody who's like in survival mode and is working a lot? Or even, let me ask you this, have you ever found yourself looking down on somebody who just isn't pushing as hard as you? Do you lack tolerance for other people, especially women who may seem to kind of lag behind in situations or life, or they're just not putting their foot on the pedal as hard as you are? That's an issue of safety. And not because in your body you feel like you're going to die, but because you're going to lose your social standing. The same way wearing a designer luxury label and having a on your arm or on your feet can signal to other people your social and economic standing. It's the same way your output rate signifies to others your social and economic standing. How busy you are in this society and several industries indicates to others how important you are, who you are, how much money you may have. Think about when you were in high school. Have you ever been that person who, maybe not, but we all know that person. I was that person. I was never going out. But in high school, that person who just never got invited anywhere, and you knew that just meant they weren't popular, that you just knew that they just didn't have a lot of friends. Like, or especially in the time that I grew up in with Snapchat and Instagram, you can tell when someone has a social life and has a lot of friends or is popular. They're always posting, they're always with a group of friends, always at a birthday party, they're always somewhere. And you can place them socially on a hierarchy. And it may not be a conscious thing, but the way we relate to them is different. You know? It's the same thing. And I've never heard anyone say this, because I know for me, I've always wanted to be that person. I took a very different path in life, but I've always wanted to be that person who was in the corporate world and was building and my schedule was just packed. Like I've always been a big planner person. I've always been a big Notion girl. Like, so I was very good at schedules and keeping doing things on time and just making sure that I was strategic with my time. And when it came to a point where I just felt like I was kind of running in circles, I wasn't hitting my goals the way I wanted them to, or maybe I was hitting my goals in the way I wanted to, but it just wasn't clicking. Like things just weren't feeling like they were supposed to. And I remember God just telling me, all I require of you is just to rest. And I've provided for you the means to do that. And so I wasn't working, and the only thing that I had to focus on was really my business. But I was waking up early at the butt crack of dawn, trying to work 12-hour days as if I had to clock in somewhere. And I just couldn't understand, like, why is it so hard for me to just not do that? Like, I couldn't fathom a way of living that didn't require me grinding to the bone 8 12-hour days every single day, waking up at 4 or 5 a.m., going to bed at 9 to 12 p.m. every single day. Like, why can't I just not do that? And I realized it's because I had a fear of looking lazy. And why would I fear looking lazy? Because it would lower my perceived social standing. the world is not kind to lazy people, because who do we consider lazy? Homeless. Who do we consider lazy? Low achievers. Who do we consider lazy? People who just don't try. Especially if you come from a family of college educated people. Laziness is not something that they tolerate. I mean, I don't even think it's just people who come from college educated. It's just anyone who has had to work for their life, anyone who has had to suffer to stand where they are. Most people don't tolerate that. They don't tolerate you sitting down. And I know there's a lot of trauma that has aided on that, and epigenetics and things like that, but it's not a good look. Who wants to be next to somebody who doesn't work hard? You know, we compliment people when they are hard workers, right? And so when you get to a point where you're recognizing that your constant going and your constant doing may be producing something, but it's killing you, it's ruining your relationships, it's lessening the connection between you and your kids, your spouse, your whoever, and you know logically that I just need to sit down, but you can't. The reason might be because you're fearful of losing your perceived social standing or status by appearing less productive. And I'm so glad I figured that out so I can share it, because I never hear anyone say that. I never hear anyone say that busyness or productivity is a social or status signifier. Like, think about it. When we watch day in the lives, when we're watching videos of people building their businesses, what are they doing? They're up at the butt crack of dawn, they're going to the gym, and then after the gym, then they might go to their 9 to 5. And after their 9 to 5, they might rest for like 30 minutes, then they go straight to grinding into work. Or for even business owners, like, they're always on their feet, they're always moving. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because everyone's different. I truly believe there are people, especially in human design generators, they are built for that. They are built for that kind of output. But what I'm saying is that sometimes you can be built for that kind of output, and you may not be built for that output, but your relationship to that productivity could be unhealthy. This is the reason why I suggested to watch the video I created prior called "You Cannot Prove Your Way into Alignment," because in that video I talked about how we like the intention we put into a thing is old fashioned. How I put this, the intention we put into a thing is the form it will take. So for example, if I bought this candle, I mean, we all know the function of a candle. I mean, I guess, I mean, depending on the candle, but this candle for scent, right? But let's say for somehow I got some type of gratification out of the candle. So now the function of the candle is not just to give light and to smell good. It is feeding me in a kind of way. Imagine this candle being your business, your relationships, your marriage, whatever, your kids. And now imagine it's your productivity. Why are you producing? Because everything has a function. I mean, some things have multiple functions, but most things have pretty few functions, and it's very cut and dry. But it doesn't mean that they have to stay within that function. We as humans can shift the function according to our needs. And so when I'm asking you, why are you productive? Why do you do so much? Why do you feel like you can't sit down? The function of that productivity, although you may say consciously, this is for me to build my business and to maintain what I've built and to get to $1 million a month, whatever it is. You might say that, but that may just be a background noise. The main thing might just be because you fear the loss of your perceived social standing or the privileges that come from looking a kind of way on a hierarchy. You fear losing that because what comes after that? Think of it in like all the movies. What happens to the uncool kids? They get bullied, they're overlooked, and they always have some kind of complex about the popular kids. Always. Do you want to be that? No. And that's why it's so important to recognize this, because if you are the kind of person, or you are somebody who has built a relationship with your business, with your productivity, to feel important, to inflate your status, to be able to stand higher in the room of the other people that you're in, you're able to brag about how much you worked and what you've been able to do, then you're not going to be able to sit down, because why would you give that up? Why would you give away those privileges? Why would you look lazy to the people that you want to look good to? If the standard or the culture and where you're at praises that kind of output, even to the point of working against yourself, why would you give that up? If you are acing that culture, like some people just thrive in certain conditions. Like for example, let's think about retail. I mean, the structure, the hours, you may thrive there, but it might not be for somebody else. But if you know that the way you're being treated in that job is not good, but you're thriving and you're reaping the benefits of it, would you really change anything? To change it would mean that you are moving more in alignment with who you are and honoring yourself. But if the cost is too high, you wouldn't do that. Because, sometimes the cost is your livelihood. It's your comfortability. It's your community, your friendships. It's the affirmation you get from your colleagues and your bosses. Why would you change that? You know what I mean? And these are the type of things that I work with my clients in the aligned partnership, especially because when you set the intention that I know what I've built and I've done a good job. Thank you to former me. But today I'm making the decision that I'm going to now build an alignment. When you get to that place, you are really asking to just shift the foundation of everything that made you comfortable, everything that made you the millionaire, or everything that made you this person who people look up to. You are going to shake that foundation. And if the cost is too high and it's not worth it to you, you're not going to do it. And the reason why I like to point this out to people is because when you have that kind of enmeshed relationship with productivity, you are never really producing what you're supposed to. Productivity is just the process of materializing something on earth. And you've done that. Through your productivity, you've created this company, you've created this business, you've created this brand, and it is what it is today. But mindless productivity, or productivity with the root intention of feeding something in you to raise your status in a kind of way, in that kind of enmeshed way that kind of brings you backwards, will not materialize the vision that God has given you for this company and for your future empire. It just won't. Because I always say, to do so requires you to mirror God himself, which is authorship and creatorship, to take that seat within you. And when you take that seat of authorship and creatorship, you cannot allow anything in the external world dictate to you who you are. Because once you start using things to tell you that you are important, that you are successful, that you are high status, then you're going to be in that continuous feedback loop. That you're going to continue to build things to feed that desire to have that affirmed, and that's it. And you may do something very amazing. I mean, we see it all the time. How many millionaires are in this country? We see it all the time. We see how many doctors are there that graduate every single year. All the time, people do this. So it's not like you won't succeed. But the thing is, over here, the definition of success is not limited to just the external output. It is in how much alignment you can produce. That to me is success. Because I believe that when you align yourself with God and the vision he gave you, wealth is just a natural byproduct. Everything else is a plus. So before I end the video, I just want to leave you with some tips on how to discover your unique rhythm. Because sometimes the rhythm that you have used to produce where you've got has worked, but to build an alignment requires you to be in tune with your body and how you naturally create. And the first thing I always suggest is human design. I suggest the easiest way is just asking ChatGPT. Provide them your birthday, birth time, and where you're born, and ask them, according to my human design, what archetype am I, and can you help me figure out what is best for my energy type in terms of productivity. I also recommend astrology, because I'm still new to astrology, but that's why I always recommend ChatGPT to everyone who isn't fully engrossed in it yet. I would ask, still having your birth time, date, and birth location in there. Ask them, according to my astrology, what times of year works best for me, or what kind of schedule works best for me. And also, before I continue, I don't want to bring the assumption that I'm like one of those people who believe that we should only work for 1 or 2 hours a day. Personally, I know that everyone's different. The only thing I'm in advocacy for is for people to honoring themselves. And that includes through their pursuit of everything that they're building. I don't agree with, I think it's harmful for people to enmesh themselves with their productivity because you're using your output to define who you are. And I think it's a recipe for burnout and failure in several ways, not just money. Another tip is to have an energy journal. Like I did this for a while on Notion where every single day I would have like a numbering chart and I would just take note of what days I feel more higher energy and lower on energy. And I also use this through the framework of cycle thinking. So you have your luteal phase, your follicular, menstrual, and ovulatory. And just pay attention at what phase of the cycle does your energy wane or wax or anything. And then the last thing I always say, well, second to last, is to be intentional about designing your experience. Like, what do you want? How do you want your life to look like? Because I know we've been sold this image across several industries, across several cultures of what life is supposed to look like on a day-to-day basis, but what do you want? Like, I know for me, I used to think I wanted to work 8 to 12-hour days, but I realized that was because I wanted to keep up and look like how people in my industry were looking. And now that I've been able to unenmesh myself with that projection, I know that I can do deep work for a max of 4 hours in a day, and then after that I have about 2 more hours left in me to before I start to like be delirious from work. I know that between 11:30 and 2 o'clock ish is when my energy levels dip. So I know that I'm not scheduling some things that are crazy between that time. I know that I work better waking up early in the mornings in the fall, winter times as opposed to the summer times. I know that in terms of how much I want to produce in a day, I don't want to have to work more than 6 hours. That's what I want. But I also know some people who are different. But you just have to know what you want and design your experience around that. And if you are having trouble trying to think through those desires or exactly what you want or how to really identify your rhythm, these are things that I cover in the Aligned Partnership anyways. That is my one-to-one consultant kind of base, but not really. It really is it's just a container for mirroring. It's everything in between that you get from working with a strategist. The women who come work with me in the Aligned Partnership are in the midst of transforming their companies to look exactly like the vision that they were initially given. So they're making power moves, taking big risks, and making really deep changes within themselves and their business. And they hire me to not just reflect back off to them the truth of who they are with clarity, but someone who could walk alongside them and advocate for them and the integrity of their vision through navigating their internal teams and everything like that. Co-founders, whatever. So if that's something that interests you, then the link is down below for the application. I work with 4 women a year, so all 4 seats are open right now. If you want to snag that seat, then the link is in the description. And the last tip I have is to download my free guide, what is it called? The Spiritual Woman Founder's Guide to Brand Alignment, Your Compass to a Fully Actualized Brand. I always recommend it because it gets to the root of your desires and the vision. It uncovers exactly what it is who you are, the vision that God gave you, and what you're building. It takes away all the fluff. It navigates you through all the things that you picked up that you thought you had to do, but you really didn't want to do. It's just your way of trying to stay ahead in some type of way. It strips all of that away. All the desires for, all the desires that were kind of grandfathered to you that aren't really yours. If you are in the midst of really transforming your brand to mirror the vision that God gave you, this is a solid first step, I promise you. It's $25 and the link is down below for you to download. But anyways, that is today's video. I have so much more this month that's coming. Expect to see me every single day. Hold me to it. Maybe not, don't do that, I don't know, but I will be here every single day. And don't forget to download your guide down below. And if you're interested in a partnership, the application is down below. You can find me on Threads, not on Instagram, and YouTube. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.